Well, hi there. It is Tuesday afternoon, November 26th, 2019, Journal 237, T+238, headed for the 8-month post-transplant mark, which is really exciting. It's been an interesting morning. It's been an interesting day. I think things tend to get more interesting for most of us right around the holidays, certainly busier, but in many cases, it's a time for introspection, at least it is for me. And I apologize if I look absurd, wearing the vest and the scarf and everything. But since the transplant and the chemo and whatnot, I get cold much more easily. And once I get cold, it's much more difficult to get warm again. So rather than sit here shivering and have my voice quivering, I figured I'd start off warm and stay that way. It'd be easier. Besides, I like the look. It's kind of an outdoorsy look, right? Don't you think? But thinking about the holidays, thinking about Thanksgiving and everything that we have to be thankful for, I've made some observations that I'd like to share. I think probably as much to listen to what I think. I know that sounds silly, perhaps, but sometimes in the course of talking things out, you stumble upon things that are really important, almost essential, or possibly even essential. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a recurrent theme, now as we move through the holiday season into the new year, but we'll see. But today I was particularly cognizant of the gift of friendship and the important role it plays in all of our lives. And I'm not talking about social media friendship, where everybody's your buddy and you love everybody and everybody loves you and you like everybody and everybody likes you and you pass those around like you sprinkle jimmies on top of ice cream. The terms become almost meaningless. I'm talking about 3 o'clock in the morning friendship, people that you depend on and people that depend on you, and what it means to be a good friend. And I'd also like to share something else with you a little bit later on. It's an acronym literally just heard in an interview that Ellen DeGeneres was doing with Tom Hanks regarding the debut of his new movie, A Nice Day in the Neighborhood. It's a Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood, but we'll get to that later. First, I want to talk about this business of what it means to be a friend. And I've talked before. I think I've mentioned before the differentiation I have experienced and I have been exposed to between our private selves, the self that we keep guarded very closely internally in our heads and in our hearts, and the public self, the self that we project out into the universe, out into the world, the self that everybody else gets to see. And the two are not necessarily, not always, not even able to cohabit all that well. Sometimes there's a lot of conflict there, but there's another self that I think is a really important self. And that's the semi-private self. That's the self that lives somewhere in between, on this continuum between private and public. And I think that changes, and I think it changes a lot from time to time, and it changes depending on whom you're interacting with, who you're involved in a relationship with, or what that interaction looks like at that moment. And it can shift quickly. And I don't know if you've experienced that, but I have. I certainly have. And it is, in my opinion, my experience, it is that willingness to share that semi-private self that is what causes 3 o'clock in the morning friends to be 3 o'clock in the morning friends. It's your willingness to share that semi-private self with them and their willingness to share their semi-private self with you. It's the secrets that we don't necessarily want to share with the rest of the world because we don't trust the rest of the world, because we don't think they can handle it, because we're afraid they might not listen, because we're afraid they might not care. But this semi-private self is a vulnerability that we all carry with us. And when you find somebody who's responsive, when you find somebody who is willing to accept that level of trust that you need from them, and when they don't betray that trust, when they guard that trust and value it as it should be valued, I think that's what establishes those critical relationships that keep us going through the dark times in life. And there are going to be dark times. I may have mentioned this before, and if I did, I apologize, but we used to have a banker, and the bank, we had her for many years. She was an excellent banker, wonderful human being, a good friend, one of those relationships that sort of migrated from commercial and transactional into relational. And beyond that, she was a client at the shop. We were a client at the bank. We saw each other often. She had a terrible life, at least from what she shared and what we could see. She was in an abusive marriage, had an abusive husband. Marriage didn't work out. Finally got a divorce. Had to wind up paying him alimony. Go figure that one out. And on top of everything else, she had just been diagnosed, when this story takes place, with multiple sclerosis, MS. And she was in the shop waiting for her car to be serviced. And our shop was like the old general store. People came in to discuss philosophy, politics, religion, anything anybody wanted to, and sometimes just to visit. People, it was not unusual for people to just drive by, pull in, stop, come in and say hello, and then just leave, which was fine. It was great. It was wonderful. It's what we lived for. This kind of was the kind of establishment, the kind of relationship we wanted to establish. And she was particularly down this one day. And I asked her what was wrong. And she said she had just come from a visit with her father. And she was looking for solace. She was looking for relief. She was looking for understanding, compassion, empathy. You can fill in any one of those adjectives you want. And rather than getting any of those things, what she got was, everybody's got to deal with something. So deal with it. And I remember I could really feel my blood bubble up inside my body. And I started to get really hot. I started to get really angry that somebody could be that heartless and that cruel. Fast forward 20 years. And there's wisdom in what our father said. Everybody's got to deal with something. And what establishes these relationships, the relationships where you do get the compassion, where you do get the understanding, where you do get somebody to listen, are those moments when you are willing to share your semi-private self with someone else and they're willing to accept you for who you are, and vice versa. When you can talk and they will listen. Not judgmentally, not with advice, just listen. Answer questions when you ask them. Remain silent when you don't. And I think that's important. I said, when you can lift the curtain on that semi-private self and feel comfortable with another human being, and then they guard and cherish that trust, you have a 3 o'clock in the morning friend. And that's critical. Now, I promised I would share this other thing with you, and I'll do that very quickly because I'm going to write about it later. And it was an acronym that Tom Hanks said he started to use consistently, something that he discovered while he was shooting A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood. And that is the acronym. The acronym is WAIT, W-A-I-T. And it stands for, why am I talking? Why am I talking when I should be listening? Why am I talking at all? What have I got to say? Should I be sharing it? Is now the time. So as we get closer to the holiday, if you're in the Midwest and you're getting battered by that polar blizzard that's going through there right now. Stay warm, take care, stay safe. I will talk to you again tomorrow. If you're out here on the left coast and you're getting hammered by our Pacific storm, that's going to be a beast, they tell us. Probably going to take up a whole week. The same advice, the same wishes for safety and warmth and the company of good friends. I'm going to come to you tomorrow, and I'm taking Thursday off, I think, unless something comes up that's so compelling I feel I have to talk about it. But until then, see you tomorrow. Love you all very much. Have a wonderful holiday. We have plenty of things to be thankful for. Take a moment. Stop for a minute. Think about that. Okay? See you tomorrow.